Welcome to the APA 7 workshop presented by the Academic Resource Center. This workshop will cover the basic formatting for an APA style paper. APA stands for the American Psychological Association, and it is typically used for your sciences and sometimes your social sciences classes. That would be classes like your psychology, sociology, biology, or even philosophy. The major changes for APA 7 are: 1, abstracts are no longer required for student papers. However, note that your professor may still require one. Also, there's updated information as far as how to use bias-free language, which is inclusive language. For example, instead of saying man-made, you would say human-made. Another thing to note is that hyperlinks for the URLs and DOIs are used, and retrieve from and access from are no longer necessary. So the basic formatting for APA is Times New Roman, double space, 1-inch margin with the page number in the top right-hand corner, and the title is bold. Your title page is centered and will include the title of your paper, which will be in bold, your first and last name, the college, the course, your instructor name, and then the date. Here we have an example. Next, the abstract. An abstract is a brief summary of the paper and its conclusions, and it is usually about 250 words or less. Abstracts are required for the scholarly journals, but in the APA 7 new guidelines, it's not necessarily required for student papers unless your professor asks you to do so. The word abstract is centered and in bold at the top of the page. This paragraph will not be indented. It will be double spaced, and it will include keywords at the end. Here's an example: bold, left margin, keywords. Also, you will have a running head. A running head, again, is not required for student papers, but it might be required, and it's usually required for papers that are submitted for a publication, like in an academic journal. A running head would be written like you see here below, where you have the title of your paper in caps and the page number. The headings that are within your APA formatted section of paper are sections that are within your paper. And within your paper, you'll have sections that are broken up, and you will have these headings. Okay, so now the headings for some reports are predetermined, especially for lab reports where they might have materials or results or findings. Each heading above the new section is going to be capitalized, and you will capitalize the first word of each important word or each major word. Like you wouldn't capitalize of and the, all right? So here we have, unless the's at the beginning. So here we have the cost of housing. The, because it's the first word, is important. Then cost is capitalized. Of isn't. Housing is. The references. The references page is the page that holds all of the sources that you have used in your paper. The reference pages, if you have more than one reference, you're going to make it plural with references. If you only have one reference, then it will be singular as reference. All your sources will be in alphabetical order, and they will be flushed left on the first line, and then what we call a hanging indent on the second and every subsequent line. An example is here. References in bold, alphabetical order, L, K, S, and you see indentation on the first and subsequent lines. And also, this particular representation also shows you how your URL and your DOI, your hyperlinks, are now included. In general, if you are going to cite a journal article, you will have the author's last name, comma, and then their first and middle initial if it is available. If there's more than one author, then you're going to put and then the author's last name, comma, and first and middle initial. And this will continue for up to 20 authors. This is going to be followed by the year in parentheses, the title of the article, the name of the article, or the name of the place where the article is included. If it has a volume, an issue, or edition, you would put it next, and then you would have the DOI. So when you're formatting an author's name or an agency, organ, organization, you're going to do last name and then the first and middle initial. If it's more than one, it's still last name, first and middle initial, and last name, first and middle initial. If it's 3 to 20, you're just going to keep adding them on. If it's more than 20, then it's going to be followed by an ellipsis, which is 3 dots, and then the final author's name. If it's an organization, then you're going to put the organization's name, and this whole section is followed by a period, as we see in this example here. Let's go to the date. Usually, when the date is included, it can be included in a number of ways. It might just be the year and month, the year, month, and day. It might include a season or a range. No matter what, you're going to put the year after the author's name in parentheses, as we notice in this example right here, followed by a period. Next, let's look at the title. If the title is part of a larger work, meaning a journal or a journal article or chapter out of a book, then it is not italicized or in quotation marks. It's just capitalized using the regular sentence case. If it is a standalone work, like it's a book or a report, then you're going to italicize and you'll capitalize it using the sentence case, right? And then you will put any additional information. And this section will end with the period, like we see here. Next, when we get to the source, this is so that the reader can retrieve it. If it's part of a greater work, like a journal article, TV episode, right? Then the source is the greater whole, right? And then you're followed by the publisher and the database and the DOI and URL. The whole work will be italicized, but you will not italicize if it's an edition or the page number. Notice this example here. Each element is going to end with a period. This is important to note. Hyperlinks and the URL are included. If you're citing from a journal, you're going to include the DOI. And sometimes links can change. So you want to use the DOI because this is the best way that you can ensure that the reader is able to find this article again. Now let's look at in-text citations. Okay, so actually within your writing, you will always include the in-text citation just to make sure that you're not guilty of any plagiarism. The basic formatting for an in-text citation is the author's last name, comma, and then the year, and that is in parentheses, followed by a period. If it's more than one, then you will include both the author's last name. If it's 3, you will just include the author's last name and then et al, followed by the same comma, 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 and the year. If there is a page number or a page range, you will also include that in your in-text citation. So here we have the last name, comma, the year, comma, and here we have the page range, 135 to 137. If there is no author, then you will just use a shortened version of the title. One key point, if the title is italicized in your reference section, then you will italicize it in the in-text citation. If the title is not italicized in the reference section, then you will use quotation marks around the title in the in-text citation. And here we have an example of an in-text citation. Here we have one with just the author, last name and the date. And here we have one with the author's last name, the date, and the page number. So in this particular workshop, we have covered the basics for APA formatting, what APA stands for, what classes you will use it for, the basic formatting and font, how to set up your reference page, how to do in-text citations. If you have any additional questions or concerns, please feel free to come to the Academic Resource Center or to access the Academic Resource Center LibGuides,